Hey everyone, in the past week, I built not one, not two, but 4 games using vibe coding. An endless runner, a tower defense, a Mario Party style minigame, as well as a full 3D action arena shooter that you see here. And this started to blow up all over Twitter, and I got a lot of questions about how this was done. And the answer is actually very simple. The answer is agent skills. So in today's video, I'm going to show you the exact workflow that I use to design, build, and deploy these games. I'll highlight the critical Threejs agent skill that I used to get the games working and looking the way that I wanted. You can use this skill both with Claude Code and Codex CLI as well. Cursor is also going to support agent skills very soon. So if you've always wanted to build 3D games like this, but haven't been able to get started, this is the video for you. If you want the exact skills and prompts that I'm using today, I've made them completely free inside my Insiders Club. And if you want to take things a step further, that's inside builderpack.ai. It's my entire toolkit, includes source code, prompts, configurations, subagents, and everything that I use to build the apps in this channel. So without further ado, let's get started. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do is take a look at the project structure that I have. So within the .plot and .codex folders, you will see that I have something called the Threejs builder skill. All right, so it's sitting within the skill subfolder, and we have the Threejs builder skill that has been made for both Codex as well as for Claude Code. You don't have to go into too much detail over here, but just know that I've been iterating on these skills as I've been building more and more games with them. And that's the key thing that you need to understand here, is that you should always be updating your skills as you go along, because as you build more and more products and applications, you will end up fixing certain bugs or things or gotchas, as I like to call them, when they occur. And then you can update your skills so that they learn to better work within your code base and the requirements that you need. If you're interested in getting hold of it, you can check out the links in the description below, where I link not only to the final games that I've made, but also the source code and the exact skills that I've been using to build them. So one of the questions that I do get is that how did I even come up with this initial Threejs skill? I'm just going to show it to you right over here. I've been working on various different skills across all my different projects as part of builderpack.ai. But one of the most key skills that I've created is this skill creator plus skill. This skill is a skill that creates other skills, and I actually use this to build the initial version of the Threejs skill that I did. Now you can go ahead and use Anthropic's own version, which they have over here called Skill Creator. But the version that you see here was created by me. And in my opinion, it's a lot more advanced because I actually looked across a lot of different skills that have been built and built this more enhanced version of the Skill Creator Plus skill based on all the learnings of all these other skills. And if you want to get hold of this Skill Creator Plus, it's available in my builder pack. Links are also in the description below. So anyway, now that we have the Threejs skill here, the way that you'll be able to launch it, and I'll just show you over here, is very simple. You can just type Claude. And in this latest version of Claude Code, if you type / you should be able to see that the skill is already loaded. But if you're in an earlier version, you can also ask it, what skills do you have? And while this is running, I'm going to show you how you can do the same thing for Codex. You can do skills, and you can see that there are 2 default skills here, and the Threejs skill has indeed been loaded correctly. All right, so this is how you ensure that you've loaded the skills correctly, because sometimes if you do not put it in the right folders, you might end up not using the skill when things run. Okay, all right, so this is step 1, and this is the most important thing in order for you to be able to vibe code your 3D games using Threejs. What you're going to do next is actually not coding later. Remember, game development is all about visuals and art design. And a lot of people do ask, did I create the assets myself, or did it just generate it on its own? And the answer is that I actually made use of off-the-shelf art assets. And the reason why you want to do something like that is, in my experience, I've done it several times. It's really difficult to create art assets using just pure vanilla Threejs and out of geometric shapes. You'll not be able to get nice textures, you won't be able to get complicated shapes. And there's a lot of AI software out there that will allow you to generate assets for you, whether it's 3D or 2D. But trust me, nothing at this moment beats having something that has been cohesively created by a human. All right, for example, I'm using this one over here and he has lots of really good assets. So I'll show you the one that you see most in my videos was this one called Cube World. And you can see here, right, like it's already done in a very consistent style. And the best part, it's all animated, textured. It comes in all the different formats. But the most important thing you want to get is the GLTF format, and definitely check the license. So this is a CC0, which is Creative Commons 0, which is extremely permissive. You can use it freely for anything, whether it's your own private thing, You can put it in your own game, you can sell it, you can market it. You don't even need to credit the author, but it's always good practice if you're using some off-the-shelf assets to at the very least credit them. Or if you want to, you could actually go on and support them on Patreon or any other ways as well. You can use paid assets as well, but for the purpose of my experiments, I was just using these free assets. Okay, just very quickly, I'm just going to show you. I used this cube world asset, and then for the shooter, I use this Toon shooter game kit that you can see over here. And so what I'm going to say here is that don't think about creating assets manually, because there are a lot of assets that you need to create in order to make something that looks good. And if you're going to AI generate it or whatever, it's going to take a lot of time. And honestly, to get it generated, to get it animated, and then get it in the right format, it just doesn't work. And trust me, because I actually have worked with Blender to create animated characters as well as 3D looking assets. And I know that nothing beats a cohesive pack like this. So once you've decided what you want to use, let's just go back to using the cube bowl one. What it is just go down here, click on download, and then you can click on just give me the download if you want to get hold of it. And this will bring it, and there are a lot of other places where you can get hold of these assets. You can go to itch.io, just remember to check the license before you use them. All right, so you can see here, this is the cube wall. I just click on download over here, and then it will prepare the download. And all you have to do is just wait for this to complete. Okay, as you can see here, it's just asking me to download this entire zip file. And you can actually open up the entire zip file over here. And if you actually take a look at what's inside here, you can see it has everything, including an atlas, as well as the pixel art and a preview of all the assets within it. So what you're going to do now, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, is that you create a folder, call it public, okay? And then I'm going to create a folder called assets within it. And then I'm going to drag this cube world one and pop it in over here. Okay. And I'm also going to take the chance to rename this. I'm just going to call this cube world so that sits very nicely. So you can see all I've done is just move the entire extracted archive into this public assets folder. And the reason I like to do it this way is because when you actually publish it onto the web, it's important that you use a good structure that allows the app to be able to access the assets when they need it. I'm just going to delete that zip file. And now we have all the assets over here. Now, this is the key step that you should do when you're working and trying to write code with external assets. And make sure you're using Opus. And now the default model is using Opus 4.5. But just check, because depending on the version of Claude Code that you're using, Opus might not be the default and you need to switch it. Okay? And what you want to do is the following. You want to say, study the public assets cube world folder and look through all of the assets that are present there. Create an assets.json file that will be an index to all the assets that are available, as well as their paths. And one more thing that I forgot to add is that focus mainly on the GLTF formats. And that was the thing that you want to do. And I'm going to kick this off right now. And the reason why you want to do this is that what you want to end up with is a way to very quickly understand what assets are available without it having to traverse and go through all of the different folders each time. So the AI will be able to just look at a single file called assets.json, and you'll be able to know exactly where every one of the art assets are going to be. And this is really important because, as you will see in the later step, this is going to be the key thing that will help you to help the LLM and the AI understand exactly how to access what's there. All right, so this is a really important step that I found very useful, especially when I'm prototyping my games. So we're just going to let this run to completion and see where we end up with. Okay, so it's completed this phase right now, and you can see that it has done a summary of 115 of the models and grouped them according to the categories based on the subfolders. And you can take a look at the assets.json over here, and you'll see this is just 170 lines, including the stats as well as the IDs for all of these models. And this will make it a lot easier later on when you are deciding which assets that you want to use and where to locate them, rather than it having to look through the folder structure by itself each time. So now that this is done, you're going to enjoy this next step, because I'm going to show you how to use Nano Banana Pro to create some concept art for the design that you want. All right, so let's get going. All right, here I am in Nano Banana Pro, and this is just within Google AI Studio. If you want to know how to set up Nano Banana Pro so that you'll be able to use it, you can check out my other video, and there's lots of tutorials online out there. But the main thing you want to do is create an account and then tie it to a paid API key. Okay, so what you want to do now is just jump in and look at the preview image if you have one. In this case, I really like Quaternius's assets because he gives you a preview, which is very useful. So what you're going to do is that we're just going to take this entire file and we're going to paste it within Nano Banana Pro. Okay, and you're going to use the following prompt. given the following preview of assets that I have and the following assets.json index, create a mockup of a 3D game where the user has to find the key and then walk towards the chest to open it and complete it each time. There are some enemies within the dungeon that the player needs to avoid. All right, and now I'm just going to drag in the assets.json as well, because I did mention it there, and just give this a whirl. Now, this is actually what I found to be a great creative unlock when you're working with games like this, because sometimes you have an idea of a game that you want to build. In this case, just based on looking at this preview, I just came up with the idea. But now with Nano Banana Pro, you're going to be able to create some screen mockups that make it a lot more visceral, that makes you be able to visualize how the end game might really look like. And this is really good, right? Because this is a really fantastic concept art to begin with, because you're going to send some stats to Google so that they can continue improving their models. And if you actually look at this, it has a nice mini map at the top as well. And it has the player, it has nice lighting. So let's see. Most of the time, you're not going to be able to get exactly what this mockup is going to look like. There are ways to get there, but it will require some level of iteration. But the whole point here is that we're going to save this now, and I'm going to put it into public, and then I'm going to create a new folder here called Dungeon. Okay, and then I'm going to call this concept.jpg. Okay, so now if you actually see within here, within Dungeon, oh, I'd have a typo. All right, it's going to be called concept.jpg. All right, so now you have the concept art. And don't forget, because all the models now are multimodal, they'll be able to visualize this. This is going to help as it tries to replicate the kind of game design that you want. So what you could do over here is just take a look at what you've written into Nano Banana, right? So it just says here, it's really a 3D game where the user has to find a key and walk towards the chest. So what you could do is actually take this and throw it into ChatGPT and say, write me a better prompt or write me a game design document, and it'll give you some fairly good results. But what I'm going to do is use a tool that I've built, and it's called TinyPRD. Now, the whole point of doing this is that it allows you to put in the prompt that we saw earlier, and it will help you to create a PRD, or in this case, if you switch it to game mode, it will actually create you a game design document. And the reasons why you might want to do something like this is that it's been tailored to produce game design documents that work really well with agentic coding tools, such as these that you see over here. It gets rid of a lot of fluff that you might often get when you use something like ChatGPT or Claude. And as you can see, I've actually used it to build different apps, such as the One Bite a Month website, as well as the games that we've been talking about in this episode. So the way that you do it is that once you've created an account, you can go ahead and paste in the exact same description that you had from earlier. And over here, you'll be able to add in some reference images. So this will be extremely useful to have as well. So we're going to drop this in over here. I have added concept mockups that reflect how the game looks. And the other thing that you can do is remember the assets.json file. You can actually just copy the whole thing and paste it in here. And then I'm also going to take the preview image and drop it in. I have also added a preview of the assets that are available. Okay. And so once you're done, we're going to scroll down and we're going to switch this to game. And then we're going to click on generate PRD over here. Okay, and this will kick off and it'll take a couple of seconds and we'll be able to draw back once this is completed to take a look at what we end up with. Okay, and you can see now it's completed and it's given you a much more comprehensive design document for us to implement this game. So you can see here it says it's identified as a small isometric 3D dungeon game, right? And the important thing here is because we've been able to provide some of these reference images. This is how you know that it's actually managed to read the reference images. Because if you had just typed in the 3D game without these assets, it would have maybe given you a different style as well. And you can see that it uses GLTF assets, and you can see that there's all the different technical requirements about using Threejs, and all of the different things that will help to ensure that when it builds the game, it will be in pretty good shape. And we'll see the end result of this very shortly. So this is the reason why I created TinyPRD. You might have heard of the notion of creating a spec or spec-driven design. This helps you to ensure that your agent is constrained in how it goes about building the application. So all we have to do now is just click copy and we can go back into our project. I'm going to pop it into a folder and I'm going to call it docs. And I'm just going to create something called PRD. And I'm just going to pop it over here. Okay. And we're going to click save. All right. So now we've got our PRD and we are almost ready to go ahead and actually implement this game. So what we're going to do is we're going to launch Claude over here. We can do context to see how much of the context has been taken up, what I'm going to do is just very quickly install a plugin that I use myself. So I'm going to do npx Chong-U/cc status line add latest init, and you will see very shortly what this does, but this will install something called a Claude Code status line. I'm just going to set all the defaults and then kick this off. I just clear the screen, I'm going to type Claude and I'm going to do resume. So this will allow me to pick up from where I left off earlier. So this was the one. All right. And you can see this time, the difference is that I have this status line below my bar. So I automatically know I have 80% of my context left. I'm using Opus 4.5. I'm on Claude Code version 2.1.1. And this is just the default output style. This is the most important thing because with 80% context, I feel confident enough that I can continue on, because once this starts getting lower, you will get lower quality output. So it's really important to pay attention to your context. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start reading this PRD over here. So I'm going to say, based on the PRD, come up with a technical design document called TDD that will help ensure that we will be able to implement this game with minimal problems and as fast as possible. And I'm going to say here, use the Threejs skill to in this. And the other thing I'm going to do out here is I'm going to say, refer to the public/assets.json. And I'm not sure why it's not auto-completing here, but it doesn't matter. For a list of assets, and use public dungeon concept.jpg as a reference mockup of the game. All right, so let's go ahead and kick this off. And you see the whole point that you're doing here is that you're actually doing context engineering. You're building up sufficient context before jumping in and diving into building the game right off the bat. And I found that this really helps you to get to a really good first initial state of the game, which you can then iterate upon, and it will allow you to just get to a playable state much easier. And the reason why you have something called a technical design document is that based on the game design, you want to identify the technical implementation plan that you're going to have when you're building the game. And the reason why we also mentioned using the Threejs skill is, all right, and you can see down here, it says, now I have all the context needed. And like I told you, this is context engineering. So what this is going to do is that it's going to increase the likelihood of the first version that it builds is going to look and feel and play a lot better. And I actually have a different video where I showcase where if you go ahead and just throw in a prompt into something like Gemini or Claude Code or whatever, the first version oftentimes will have a lot of little bugs that you do not want. The great thing with what we've done here is that we've got a mockup, and you can obviously continue to iterate on how this mockup looks like to get to something that you want. I'm very happy with just this one, and I think Nano Banana Pro tends to fare really well with this. So we've got the mockup, we've got the PRD, and now we're creating the TDD or technical design document to go along with it. So we're almost there, right? I promise you that is the last step of the context phase before we go ahead and implement the game. So we're going to let this chug along, and you will notice that the context remaining has depleted quite significantly, and that's because we've been loading in a lot of the different contexts. We're loading in the skills, we're loading in the TDD, the assets.json, the image. So this will start to go down quite significantly. And as you will see later, I will want to refresh this context before I go ahead and build the game. But let's just wait till this is completed and then we'll draw back. Okay, so this is now completed. All right, and you will see that it has written something called a TDD over here, and it's given an architecture overview, the tech stack, how to do asset management, and everything to do with the dungeon creation, collision system input, and everything you expect this game to have. Now, this one is going to build it in a single index.html file. So this will make it very easy to distribute. It's how I designed the current version of TinyPRD to encourage it to be in just a single file. Now, there are a lot of reasons why you wouldn't want to do that, and I'll be working on a new version that potentially splits this up into smaller files. But for now, this has worked really well for me, especially when you're building quick prototypes and you want this to be very easy to distribute. And so you can see here, it also knows how to ensure that it can load all the assets, and it covers a lot of snippets of code that you'll need to do in order to implement this very well. Okay, so now that this is done, we are ready to go ahead and implement the game. So let's scroll down. All right, so I'm going to scroll down here, and you can see the context remaining is 54%. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to export the conversation that I had so far, and I'm going to call this the transcript. Okay, and the reason why I like to have this transcript is so that when I go ahead and go back and look at the prompts that I use so that I can improve it in the future or for the purpose of recording this video, I'll be able to get hold of it. So this is the reason why this is very useful. So now that we have 54% left, it's actually going to be quite useful to either compact, or in this case, I don't think it's that necessary because we actually have everything we need to build this game. So we're going to do new over here, and we're going to free up the entire context so that we can go ahead and implement this entire game and make the full use of the context that we have. Right, so I'm going to go into plan mode. So I'm going to do Shift Tab to go into plan mode, as you see over here. And I'm going to say, implement the game defined in prd.md. All right, so you have this. Adhering to the technical design in tdd.md. And let's go get that one. Note the assets index in assets.json. And it's managed to get hold of these assets over here and use the Threejs builder skill. All right, and this one I probably didn't get it, so I'm going to do the Threejs builder skill. All right, and then we're going to make sure to be in Opus 4.5, and let's go ahead and do that. All right, so we're going to kick this off, and this is the final step before we let Claude Code go ahead and build the entire game. So you can see here it's kicked off and used the Threejs builder skill that I've been talking about the entire time. And this is the only skill that you really need in order to build games like this, because like I said, this skill has been refined over several projects that I've used, and it includes some really useful scripts in order to fix a lot of very gnarly issues such as coordinate systems and facing the right direction and animation states and just all the things that you will, if you've ever tried to build a game using AI with Threejs, you just know that everything is just, you'll have all these little niggly issues where it's facing the wrong direction and things like that. And it might still happen, don't get me wrong, but the idea is that it'll be quite easy to fix as well because there's all of this knowledge of how to deal with Threejs. Okay, so we're going to let this go ahead and continue on, all right, because what it's going to do is that it's going to get a good understanding of what to do and then go ahead with and create the implementation plan as you see over here. All right, you can actually immediately see the reason why we freed up the context just now, because you see just by reading all the docs, looking at all the assets, it's really taken up almost half of its context window. And now coming up with this plan is probably going to deplete the remainder. So this is the reason why it's always very useful to make sure that you are keeping aware of the context they're using. Don't wait until it auto-compacts because by that point, it's going to be too late. All right, so now it's completed the plan that it needs to do to implement this. And you can see here, all right, you can say it's ready to code, and here's the plan. Now, one of the new things in Claude Code is this /plan command. And I'm going to just very quickly show it to you over here because there's several reasons why you want to do it. Now, if you go ahead and press 1 and bypass permissions, now it's going to go off and build the entire game. But we're not quite ready to do that, and I'll show you why. So I'm going to jump out here because you see this entire plan that's sitting within this win box. In the past, for you to access this plan was not always clear how you're going to be able to see it, right? But recently, they've come up with this new plan command. And if you do plan open, what it does is that it will open up the plan that Claude Code has created in this markdown file over here. And you will see that it stores it in .claude.plans and it will give it some random name. And what I like to actually do is to save this plan into my own folder over here so that I can refer to it when I need to in the future. So whistling sonnet.md. Now, the reason why you want to do something like this is, here's the trick, is that with this plan, if just say you run out of your usage limits, you can pretty much, I've had good success with now just taking this plan and giving it to another coding agent like in Cursor or in Codex CLI and getting GPT 5.2 to go ahead and implement it. So this is actually a really good trick, especially if you're hitting your usage limits when you're doing a lot of stuff with Opus 4.5. And so the reason why you want to have this plan over here is so that you will be able to do just that. All right, so I'm going to close this now and just go back into here. And in this case, I think it's worthwhile compacting the conversation so that we free up some of this context window before we go ahead and implement the plan. So what you could do is do an entire like new again and just free up the entire context window and just give it this plan that you see over here and you have pretty good results. But in this case, I'm going to compact it and then just proceed on from where it's left off so that it has that in memory. All right, so it's finished the compacting over here. So it's probably been able to free up a little bit more of the context, which will refresh once we do the next command. So now that we're ready, please proceed with implementing based on the plan. All right, so you can see it actually even though now that it's refreshed, it's freed up to 83% of the context, which should be sufficient for it to complete the implementation of this. So we're going to let this run until the end, and then we'll draw back because it pretty much has everything it needs to go ahead and implement this. I'm going to click OK, bypass permissions, and it's going to go ahead and implement the very first version of your game. And I'm really excited to see how it turns out. All right, you can see it's going to create the thing in a single index.html file, which will make it very easy to distribute, and then it's going to test the game. All right, so we'll draw back once this is completed. All right, and it's actually completed now, which completed a lot quicker than I expected it to. But you will see that it did it for about 5 minutes and 14 seconds. And if you recall, we were at 60-ish% in terms of context, and it cut it down to about 50. So actually, it had enough context based on everything that we provided for it to be able to implement the entire game. So what you're going to do is just open a new terminal. So I'm just opening it by the side over here. I'm going to close this on the side. And what you want to do is just go to the public folder, right? So what you want to do is that you want to serve this, right? You're not going, if you try to open up index.html, right? So if you see, it's basically built the game, it's already built the game here in index.html. But if you try to just reveal this and find it and just open this in a browser, often what you will see is that you have the game here, but none of the assets are loading. Okay, because the reason is that it actually needs to serve and load the assets, and if you don't serve it from localhost, it isn't able to access it due to the permissions. All right, but the nice thing that you can see just from this game over here with the skill that we have is that the game is fully functional. As you saw over here, right, that's the enemy. I'm walking around, I have to find the key, right? I have to find the key that you can see over here, which the Threejs skill actually creates placeholder assets. And this allows you to play and test the game even if your assets aren't working. And this is a really good way to make sure that the game is even fun, even without good looking assets. All right, so you can see that it's already working over here, but let's actually check it out with the full assets. Just jumping back into my IDE, like I said, one of the easiest ways that you can do is just do serve. All right, and this will just put it in here. And you can see it's serving a localhost at this URL. So I'm going to open it up and here we go. All right, so I'm going to look and you can see in this case, it is running correctly. It was the same game that you saw earlier, but this time it's able to load all the assets that we saw from earlier. You can see that the enemies are chasing me and they're all animating correctly. And this game is actually a lot harder. So what we're going to have to do is that we're going to have to try to sneak past this goblin that we see over here. So I'm going to hide over here. Okay, so I think shift is for sneaking. So you can see if I hold shift, I actually move a lot slower. Right? And if I don't hold shift, I'm running a lot faster. And I have to get past this goblin over here. So I'm just going to sneak past him. He's just saw me and I'm going to run away. Oh no. This game is a lot harder than it looks. I'm going to do a close save. Okay, so that's pretty hard, but I'm going to try this time. So I'm running here. Let's see if I can grab the key. Right. Oh, no. And this is a lot harder than I thought. Okay, but you can see the game is already working. It's loaded in the assets. There's something about the game design and the camera that probably needs tweaking. But overall, the game is working as expected. See, I picked up the key. You can see it. I picked it up over here. And now the guy's chasing me and there's no way to run away from it. This game's a lot harder than it looks. And they definitely need some tweaks. But the whole point is that you've gotten to a pretty good spot over here because now with this first iteration, the character is moving correctly. It's animating. You can see if I do WSD, I'm moving correctly. And there's already the character movement. And you already saw that they are able to know whether they should chase you or not. And this provides you with a really good baseline for you to continue to implement the rest of the game. So this is really the crux of it. Once you get to this point, it's already solved a lot of the issues that you would normally encounter if you just tried to build a game with Three.js. Like the models won't load correctly, the animations won't play correctly, they won't blend together correctly. But you can see at this point, it's already got all the elements of what would make the game fun. And all you need to do from this point is to iterate upon it. So that's generally how I did it. And if you just take a look at this video, this is the game that I built the last time. It was a little bit buggy, but the main game was there. And then I slowly iterated upon it until the game started to look better and better. And that's how games are made. Nobody ever one-shots an entire game like this because there's just so much iteration that goes into game development. The main thing is that you want to get to a playable version of the game, as we see over here. You want to get to a playable version of the game that allows you to iterate quickly and not have to worry about whether the models are loaded correctly, whether the controls are working correctly, whether or not the game mechanics work correctly as well. And this is how I like to build my games. All right, so I'm just going to spend a little bit of time trying to see how I can improve this and then ultimately where we can end up in the next couple of minutes. So what we're going to do is just identify some key issues that we want to fix and then we want it to implement it. Okay, because the core mechanics are already there. It's just that the game right now has a bit of problems with the cameras, the difficulty, and several different things like that. So let's think about what we're going to do. So I think what we're going to do is do a few things, which is we want to make sure that the maps don't have such narrow corridors, because right now there's only enough space for you to walk or get through, and it's pretty tough. The second thing is that the camera isn't great because of the walls as well. And then I think those are really the key things that make this game unplayable at the moment. So let's just fix those things right now. Okay, so I'm going to say let's fix the following issues. All right, so I'm going to say, first of all, the game's map is currently too tight. The corridors are narrow. The intention is to have a lot more space to allow the player to navigate and avoid enemies. I'm also going to say that it might be worthwhile referencing I'm going to reference the concept.jpg for a good example. Right, and the second thing, what was the second thing I would say? So currently, we are not using any tiles for the walls, making it look very bland and gray. So let's use some assets to be able to make the map look better. Okay, all right, so we have that. And what else should we do? I noticed just now that if you walk towards them, you will see that the exclamation mark doesn't appear above the head of the enemy. So I'm going to say the exclamation marks do not appear above the mesh of the enemies, and instead it intersects with their body. All right, so that's the other one. So that I noticed that the zombies aren't really animating correctly, are they? They're just floating around. Oh, but the enemy when they chase you. All right, I just want to double check that is the case so you can see. All right, so I'm going to add that as another issue. The enemies are not animating when they're patrolling, but they do animate correctly when they're chasing the player. All right, and what else do we want to fix? I think those are the main issues. All right, otherwise everything works pretty well. The camera is actually pretty good. It's just that the walls are too high and occluding it. I'll just add that as another point. Note that with the current design and having not implemented the earlier suggestions, the wall occludes much of the player character and the game, making it hard to play. All right, so I think we can go ahead and try to fix all of these issues and see how it turns out. Normally you want to fix one issue at a time, but I think it should be able to fix all of these issues quite quickly. So let's just give this a roll and see how this goes. All right, so you can see now it's actually looking at the concept art. So hopefully you'll be able to get a good reading into what we're going to look for. All right, so now I did acknowledge that it should have a much more open with large rooms and wider passages. Like I said, this is not a silver bullet, right? The main goal was really to make sure that the initial game was good enough for you to iterate upon. I suppose that there's a lot of stuff we could have done to make it even better, but I find that having been working in games for ages now, both in the vibe coding age and the traditional sense, games are not built in one shot. Just trust me on that. They usually have a first version, they try to solve one issue, for example, the controls, the mechanics, and things like that, and then you iterate upon that. A game like Assassin's Creed or Batman was never created in just one shot, and it's built upon a lot of iterations. And in fact, most of the games that you saw at the beginning of this video were built with a pretty shoddy first implementation, and then I iterated upon it quite quickly to the state that it got to over several days. So let's see if how far we can bring this. I don't want this video to be too long. I just really wanted to show you the process to get to a stage where you can really start vibe coding a 3D game and then be able to create something that's really fun and really just avoid a lot of the problems that you usually get if you try to just work on the game and vibe code things using Threejs. This is just what's worked for me. Obviously, very open to other suggestions and improvements. And as I learn and work more on this, I'll also be happy to update, maybe to create an updated video or share more tips and tricks on how to make this process a lot better. All right, so I can already see some changes that are propagating through, and you can see this game is looking a lot better now, right? And all I needed to do was to just change the layout of the map, right? The way that the map was previously, it just made it really, I got a key now. And let's see if I'm going to be able to open the chest. All right. I think I have to press E on because it's just so close. Okay, so there's definitely something about the game balance. I'm going to press E. I managed to clear the game. So you see the game is actually playable now. And I think this time it's got a different map. Pick up the key. This one's a lot easier. And let's see if I can get it. Yes, I managed to clear it. All right, so you can see just by changing the level design, it's already made it a lot better. The camera feels a lot better. So the camera was fine earlier. It's just that the level design just didn't make it look good. And you can see that now the enemies are animating when they are walking and idle. And while they're not chasing me, and now when they chase me, okay, you can see that. Yeah, I'm going to just refresh this and see if the other issues are also fixed. Let's see. He hasn't seen me. Oh, yeah, he saw me. Okay, so it's definitely appearing higher this time, but it's still not high enough. So pick up the key and just close the project. Cool. All right, so you can see just that change has made it a lot better. Let's see whether there's any other issues. I think what would make this game more fun really is that you should be able to, rather than stealth walk, which I think is the whole point of the whole shift, I think is so that they won't be able to detect me. But I think I'm going to swap it around where holding shift allows you to burst, but you only have a certain progress bar before the burst drops. So I think that will make the game a lot more fun. Okay, let's see anything else. And let's see what he managed to fix. Okay, so he managed to fix a bunch of things. I'm happy with the layout design now. I think it needs to be higher, so I'm going to tell him to fix that. Animation patrol. Okay, cool. So I'm going to say, and you can see the context remaining as it shows over here. And my status line actually flagged this as orange. This tells you that you're probably in a position where you want to either compact or create a new conversation. So I'm going to compact the conversation now, right? Hopefully to claw back, because I do want it to be able to pick up on the fact that I'm going to continue on this exclamation mark and something to do with the wall tiles as well. Okay, so let me just look at the preview. So it should be able to use some nicer tiles for the walls. So I'm going to tell it to do that. And then I think we have some random ornaments that we could have lying around. So we'll just do this one more thing and then just see how it ends up. All right, so it's compacted now. So let's fix up a few of the things, right? So number one, the exclamation mark is still a little bit too low. Put it higher still. Okay. All right, so this one. All right, so there we go. Secondly, I would like to use GLTF tiles for the walls rather than the plain gray mesh that is there currently. And rather than holding shift to go stealth, let's introduce a game mechanic where holding shift allows the player to run at a higher speed for a limited amount of time, so with energy depleting. Okay, so I think that will help to make the game better. And what else can I see? All right, so I think everything else is really about visuals and polish, which we can do maybe as a final step. So let's get these things fixed up first. So I'm going to kick it off here. I'm still using Opus 4.5, and let's just wait to see how this is going to go. All right, and you notice because we have compacted our context, you saw it 82%, and then it read our file and it dropped straight away down to 67%. So you can see the reason why you want to ensure that you are in control of your context is that, as I said, you can get context rot if you let it deplete too low and wait until it does its auto compact, because by that point, you want to be always in control of your context window. So this is something that's really important. So you can see it's adding brick walls, all right? And okay, so you can see it started to load in the brick walls now. So that does look a little bit better in my opinion, because it adds a bit of color. I didn't really like the gray. All right, so we aren't sprinting just yet. But we can pick up the key. And hey ho, don't get it. This spotted me. Okay, the exclamation marks are looking correct now, but the animation of the animations now don't play for the skeleton correctly, but that's fine. Okay, so I managed to clear and open the box. Let's try again. Okay, so you can see that it's the same level this time. Oh, yep, it's after me this time. So I think the sprint mechanic would really make this game feel a lot better. Okay, I noticed there's also, all right, so I think sprinting is working now. So you can see this is like the speed, and then when I start sprinting, it's going to be able to do it. So it has spotted me. Okay, all right, so now I can sprint now. All right, so I think the game's a lot better now because of this sprint mechanic. Right, it just adds an extra depth. This guy's not very smart. He hasn't seen me. And oh wait, all right, I'm gonna sprint. So you can see the sprint mechanic actually makes this game a lot better. All right, I can see the energy bar at the bottom left-hand corner, which is depleting when I hold shift down. So yeah, all right, you can see this is actually making good progress. The game is actually starting to look better, become more fun. If I actually make this a bit bigger, you may see that the game actually is pretty decent. And there's just still some small little bugs with the animation and things like that. But the game is in a good position. So you can see how you can have a really good baseline for you to continue to iterate this. And I built this game really just off the whiff as I was making this video. And I think you can take this and put some really cool mechanics, I don't know, weapons and maybe multiple chest cases and things like that, and improve the AI. So hopefully this has been useful to showcase to you how you would go about building a game in Claude Code. Like I said, it's actually a really good baseline for you to go ahead and iterate upon and build a full-fledged game. All right, so I'm going to take this, and maybe if I get a chance, I'll add a little bit more polish and other things. But I just want to keep this video as short as possible because I think this has already covered the entire workflow. I hope you see the power of the agent skills as I demonstrated through here. Combining it with Nano Banana and a really good spec can allow you to create games that play and feel better. And the Threejs skill is really useful because it helps you to overcome a lot of the gotchas and the bugs that you will encounter that takes the fun away from building games. But with the skill, I found that it's allowed me to get straight into having something playable so that I can iterate upon. So that brings us to the end of today's video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you found this helpful, give it a like, hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to turn on notifications so that you'll always be the first to know whenever new content like this drops. And if you haven't seen my previous video, which talks about how I made use of a Nano Banana Pro skill to create an interactive greeting card system, you might want to check out this video over here. All right, till next time, I'll see ya.